Tunneling is arguably Dead by Daylight's hottest and most contested topic right now. Depending on who you play, you either view tunneling as a viable tactic, or you see it as the biggest sin a killer can do, and they should be executed for it. However, let's look at the perks that are designed to stop and mitigate tunneling and explain why they're a problem as well. Let me preface this by saying anti-tunnel perks themselves are not a problem. When they do their intended purpose, I don't think anyone hates them, because if you're tunneling and get hit with Decisive Strike, then the killer probably deserves it. The issue lies with what survivors can do with them. As of now, there's 3, maybe 4 anti-tunneling perks: Decisive Strike, Off the Record, Dead Hard, and the new contender Wicked. The first 3 are very strong perks that you will run into at least every other match because of how valuable they are, and maybe they have too much value. When a survivor is unhooked and tunneled and the killer gets hit with an Off the Record into Decisive Strike Dead Hard combo, yeah, the killer more than likely deserves it, but many experienced survivors will realize the value in these perks and how to use them in an unintended purpose, which is what makes them so much stronger. Let's say for this example, you see Dwight unhook Nia. Now you go for Dwight and you down him in say 30 to 40 seconds, and then as you're about to pick him up, you see a Nia just around the corner with a flashlight. You then decide to chase her because she is close by and injured, an easy target. However, as you're chasing her, you realize something. She isn't making any noise. Her Off the Record is still active because it lasts for 90 seconds. For 90 seconds, she is basically a full health survivor. Now, would this be considered tunneling at all? No. My definition for tunneling is this: when a survivor is unhooked, you will only go for them. Even if there is a Dwight in a dead zone or a Kate who's exposed, you will chase after that Nia as soon as possible, as soon as she's off the hook, because you want her out of the game as quickly as possible. However, even if you do go for an entirely different survivor and hook them, Nia will still have a anti-tunnel perk active. I've had one instance where I was playing Leatherface and hit a survivor with my chainsaw while they were at full health, yet somehow they only go into deep wound. How is this possible, I thought? Well, in the postgame, I looked and saw she had Off the Record still active because, again, it lasts for a minute and a half. The problem with anti-tunnel perks is that they also turn into an anti-chase perk at high level. Let's look at Decisive Strike 2. Same scenario, Dwight unhooks Nia and you down him, then see Nia, except this time when you go for the hit, she runs into a locker. Naturally, you just grab her out of it because she wanted to dodge a hit for a second by jumping into the locker, a very common strategy. Except, bam, hit with Decisive Strike. Even though you obviously weren't tunneling and wanted to go for the easy target of Nia in a dead zone, you are now punished because you were just supposed to A, know that she somehow had this perk, and B, have a timer in your head that counts exactly for a minute after she's been unhooked. The problem with Off the Record and Decisive Strike is that when these perks are active and they aren't even being tunneled, they still get benefits and can become incredibly aggressive, because even if they mess up, they either get enduring or can just stun the killer. Now, I know some people will say something like, oh well, if you see Nia with a flashlight teabagging, she's obviously just trying to taunt you and take aggro so that when she gets down, she gets the D-strike and gets more distance, and you should just ignore her. But the issue with that is that for that entire time, she's basically invincible. You have to hit her through enduring and then eat a Decisive Strike, even though you could have hooked 2 survivors in that time, but it's still tunneling. And then there's also the argument that Nia isn't progressing the game at all, and that's like 70% true. I mostly agree with it. Since they can't perform conspicuous actions like healing or doing gens, she's literally just standing around. However, if she has background player waiting for you to pick up the Dwight, it's a lose-lose scenario. If you go in for Dwight, she runs it at 200% speed and saves him. And if you go for Nia, then again, she has 2 perks that make it impossible to win against her. One of the biggest problems with Decisive Strike 2 is that, being genuine, nobody can really time the survivors. Nobody has a clock in their head running that tells them when it's been 60 seconds after the Nia has been unhooked. For all you know, it's felt like 60 seconds, but she still has another 10 seconds on the perk. At least when Off the Record is active, they don't make grunts of pain. So if you listen to them and hear them making, sound, it's like, okay, I know that Off the Record isn't active anymore. Decisive Strike is just an enigma on if they have it or not until you get hit by it, or you're forced into getting hit with a Decisive Strike because Nia jumps into a locker. I've always said that these perks should deactivate if another survivor gets hooked, because then at that point it's not really tunneling. Either that or the killer must take 2 health states from another survivor in order to deactivate it. So either if the Dwight is down from full health, or the Kate is hit once and the Dwight is hit once, then it would deactivate. Because for an anti-tunneling perk to stay active even when you're not tunneling would be crazy, right? There wouldn't be a perk like that. Dead Hard has to be one of the most confusing anti-tunneling perks because, by all accounts, it doesn't exactly function like one, but still is activated in the same way by being unhooked. However, Dead Hard is the same thing as the last 2 perks, except now on the offensive and is totally chase focused. Dead Hard has always been an issue in literally every iteration, and to be honest, this is still the most balanced version of it, but it can still be a very strange anti-tunnel perk. Even after 5 different chases with other survivors, or working on gens healing other survivors, this perk can still be activated and give you a free second chance on counter. Dead Hard is an extremely tricky perk to balance, because if you make it work like the other anti-tunnel perks on a timer, why should you run a perk that you need to manually activate instead of off the record, which is just 90 seconds of automatic Dead Hard? But at the same time, if I can down Dwight, Nicolas Cage, and Kate, then get to Nia and still get hit with the anti-perk Dead Hard, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm not saying at all Dead Hard needs a nerf at all, because this is still one of the best and strongest perks in the game, an on-demand off the record, and that's what makes it so good. Sure, it has a somewhat narrow window, but depending on where you are or what killer you're going against, it's very easy to bait them into hitting your Dead Hard and getting that on-hit speed boost. Finally, we get to Wicked, the newest anti-tunnel perk. While it doesn't have the invincibility or second chance capabilities of the other 3, it provides another avenue, and that is information. After being unhooked, you see the killer's aura for a whole 20 seconds. Along with that is you can unhook yourself from basement guaranteed. That part can arguably be used offensively by looping near basement, like by shack or main building. Looping shack and getting hooked in basement is such a common occurrence that it's not really something that has an obvious tell, like Decisive Strike jumping in a locker or off the record being silent, because running to main building or shack is one of the strongest things a survivor can do. However, this does of course come with the giant risk of losing an entire health state and making yourself very vulnerable. But you can then do something insane, like Wicked unhooking yourself in basement, then having off the record and Decisive Strike. Of course, this is just talking about the offensive application of this perk and not the anti-tunnel capability of having 20 seconds of guaranteed wall hacks. I would say Wicked is probably the most fair anti-tunnel perk, because with that 20 seconds, you can see where the killer is and run the opposite way and hide, or maybe just heal yourself and run somewhere safe with another survivor and get healed. Plus, if the survivor healing you is running some sort of healing perk like Will Make It, then you get an increased amount of, usage out of it. And also, anyone who runs Will Make It is goated as hell, and they are pure Chad material. Then finally, this one isn't an anti-tunnel perk per se, but it's the base kit Borrowed Time. I'm sure this scenario is one that every killer runs into, and that's when a survivor body blocks after getting unhooked, because they know that they have the enduring status effect and will not suffer any penalty because enduring. I remember Borrowed Time being an essential perk that you needed to run for years before it was base kit, just to deal with the tunneling issues, and survivors complain about it all the time. When it was introduced, survivors will just body block the killer so they can't hit the unhooker. Like, I don't want to tunnel you, Nia, I want to go for the Dwight, but when you stand directly in my way and block me from getting to him, it's just so annoying, and then they complain in the endgame that you tunnel, even though they latch onto your face and block you from trying to avoid tunneling. There's one simple solution to this, and it's just make it so survivors are intangible for a few seconds after being unhooked, so that survivors can't body block and take a hit and force semi-tunneling when a killer wants to go for the Dwight when Nia body blocks him like Piccolo. So overall, anti-tunneling perks themselves are not an issue at all. The issue lies in their misuse. However, compared to years ago when the second chance perks were making up 99% of matches, it's still much better to play against now than it was before, but it still isn't fun watching survivors abuse these perks that are designed to be strong for anti-tunnel be also used for anti-chase. That's why I still believe these perks should be disabled when a killer is objectively not tunneling. Another issue is that when a survivor is unhooked, the unhooker like 50% of the time will start to hide, so then the only person who gets caught is the one trying to run away and leaves a big red trail behind them, which really sucks and leads to easy tunneling. I really feel like more people should be running Borrowed Time more, as it's still an underrated perk. Giving your teammates another 10 seconds of haste and enduring is insane and can help a lot with tunneling because of that additional haste. I don't really have anything else to say other than take care of yourselves and have a damn good one. Peace.